Green Party has proposed scrapping the emissions trading scheme in favour of a carbon tax. So let's go to Julianne first. Yes, how does it work?
It's not a radical policy. The fact is the ETS has failed. And
Didn't you support it in 2008?
We supported Labour's ETS because it was better than nothing, but it was still only going to reduce carbon emissions by about 2%. What we've always preferred is to have a transparent price on carbon and to recycle the revenue, give it back to families and businesses.
This is quite a U-turn for you, though, isn't it? It's a U-turn, isn't it?
Not a U-turn.
$2,000 for the first $2,000 tax-free. Didn't it used to be the first $10,000 was tax-free?
Well, when we start with a certain carbon price, and we've proposed $25 a tonne, we did the economic modelling and we figured out what we could afford in terms of a tax break. Obviously, we have other policies as well, which might result in a 10,000 tax-free threshold. But for this one, the climate tax cut is going to leave families over $300 a year better off, and a 1% tax cut for businesses.
$300. What is wrong with that? That sounds like a win-win policy, Paul Fosterbell.
Yeah, but can you believe it, Wallace? You know, we've been very, very clear that the emissions trading scheme that we currently have is what we're sticking with. Kiwis rejected outright a carbon tax in the last decade. It was called the fart tax. You might remember the protests against that. And New Zealand families don't want more added to their fuel bill, their food bill, or their energy bill that they've got to pay. So I think we're going to stick with it. The only party
going into the election with a tax cut.
The Green Party.
It's the Greens.
Well, look, what we're really clear on is that the current scheme we're sticking with, and you know, we reject that the policy that they've outlined will do the things that they say it will do.
What about yourself, Paul Fosterbell? Do you like the idea? So some people like the Taxpayers Union. David Farrar from Kiwiblog says it's quite a good policy. What do you think?
No, look, Australia were considering this and they rejected it. The European Union have a trading scheme, so we are sticking with the scheme.
Okay, Andrew Little, what does Labor think? Well, no, what do you think about the carbon tax scheme?
What I think, both the ETS and the carbon tax are both about putting a price on carbon. We all agree, well, most of us agree, that climate change is real. We have to do something about it. We have to reduce our carbon emissions. We tried, the last Labor government tried a carbon tax. It had some exemptions and so on in it. The farmers and business reared up against it, said, no, we don't want that.
So do you like this one?
We want ETS. We've got an ETS now. They say the opposite.
Is Labor going to come in behind the Greens and support this? What do you think?
Well, we put in place the ETS.
But are you going to support the carbon tax?
By the National Party. We are committed to an ETS. We think it can work. We need to
so
deal with issues like
you're not going to support the
allocation
Greens on this?
No, we agree on the need to have a price on carbon and reduce carbon emissions. How we get there is, you know, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
What do you think about what the policy will do, the Greens policy will do for emissions?
We think it's a good idea. You know, I actually agree with Andrew. I think either approach can work. It's not so much the tool, it's the intent behind it. And the issue at the moment, if you'll allow me to use my prop.
I will. I looked at it beforehand. It's quite a complex prop, so we might need to let's simplify this. But okay.
All right.
The year is 2011.
This is our current greenhouse gas emissions, and if you actually look at the government's own projections of where we're going to be in 2030. It's going to be a lot bigger. And that little tiny green line,
which is just here, that tiny bit there.
That's right. That's the total effect of all the current policies in place,
including the ETS.
That's right.
Have you got some, if you turn that around, can you tell us what the Greens policy is going to do as well?
Well, we can't say that without modelling being done. But the bottom line is we need to do a lot more.
It's probably fair to say that you've been coming to backbenches for a long time, that you normally side with the more right side of centre parties. Is that fair enough?
That's a fair point.
Fair comment. So when I read a release from you and also a blog from David Farrar of Kiwiblog, who was also well known to be more on the right of centre, supporting Green policy, I just about fell off my chair.
Well, firstly, isn't it great to have all the Green Party supporters cheering for tax cuts, finally acknowledging that New Zealanders are taxed too much? But let's look at this. Our Taxpayers Union position is the same as the former Business Roundtable, Roger Kerr, the Centre for Independent Studies in Australia, and the facts are that even if you don't worry about climate change, you should support a carbon tax over our existing emissions trading scheme.
When you say don't worry, you mean don't believe in?
Well, some people, we can take people can disagree about the extent of the problem. What we're saying is that putting that aside, a carbon tax has advantages over a muddled ETS, an ETS where the rules are constantly changing, as opposed to a transparent carbon tax where we know the rate, if politicians want to change the rules, it's out there in the public. Let me give you an example. The budget last month, the government, deep down in that legislation, changed rules of the emissions trading system against ministerial assurances made only a few months earlier, and it's cost forestry owners megabucks.